So I'm going to do 1 through 5, and then I'll stop, and if there's any questions, and then we'll go through 6 through 15, and then I'll stop. Okay? All right. Number 1 is y equals 1/12 x minus 3 times x plus 2 squared times x minus 7. Number 2 is y equals 1/20 times x plus 4 times x plus 1 times x minus 5. Number 3 is y equals negative 180 over 81 times x minus 3 times x plus 1 cubed times x minus 5 squared. And number 4 is y equals negative 1 over 162 times x plus 4 cubed times x minus 2 times x minus 5. And number 5 is y equals negative 1/4 x plus 3 squared times x. Now, is there any questions to these? 1 through 5. Yes, Shana. Number 5? Number 4. Okay. So for number 4, let's first talk about, we agree that your roots are the same as mine, right? So we've got, I'm going to do it on a separate sheet of paper. We've got roots for number 4. We are going to say y equals a times x plus 4 cubed times x minus 2 squared times x minus 5, correct? Okay, now we're going to plug in the number negative 1, negative 9. Negative 1 for my x, negative 9 for my y. So I'm going to get negative 9 equals a times negative 1 plus 4 cubed times negative 1 times negative 1 minus 2 squared times negative 1 minus 5, right? So I'm going to get negative 9 equals a. Negative 1 plus 4 is 3. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Good. Times negative 1. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is positive 9, right? So negative times negative is positive. Negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. Okay? Now we have to multiply all these together. We're multiplying 27 times 1 times 9 times 6. Okay? And a negative times a negative, we should end up with a positive answer. So negative 9 equals a times 1,458. Okay, and I'm going to divide that on both sides. Okay, so I'm dividing negative 9 divided by 1,458. Okay, but I could probably reduce this. So my answer for number 4 is 1 over that. So I'm going to take 1,458. So I get 1 over 162, and it's negative. Because I took 9 goes into 9 one time. 9 goes into 1,458 162 times. Any questions about this before we move on? Okay, any other problems 1 through 4? 1 through 5, excuse me. Okay. All right, we're going to look at 6 through 15. Okay. So I'm just going to read off the answers. If you want to see the sketch that I drew, just ask and I will pull it up. Number 6 is y equals negative 7 over 1,296 times x plus 3 squared times x plus 2 times x minus 4 cubed. Number 7 is 1.5 times x minus 3 times x plus 2. Number 8 is 1 over 36 times x minus 1 times x minus 2 times x minus 4 times x plus 3 squared. Number 9 is y equals negative 1/9 times x minus 3 times x plus 2 times x minus 5 squared. Number 10 is y equals negative 1 over 2,772 times x plus 2 times x minus 3 times x minus 5 times x minus 7. Number 11 is y equals 1/9 times x minus 3 squared times x plus 1 times x plus 7. Number 12 is y equals negative 1 over 1,500 times x plus 4 cubed times x plus 1 squared times x minus 4. Number 13 is y equals negative 1/5 times x plus 8 times x minus 3 times x minus 5. Number 14 is y equals negative x plus 1 times x minus 1 times x plus 3 squared. And number 15 is y equals 2 over 27 x minus 1 cubed x plus 2 times x minus 3. Okay, which ones of those do you want me to go over? Or do you just need another minute to get them all done? Not and fit it on. Is there any that you guys would like me to repeat? Because I went over that too fast. No? There's none that you got wrong that you want me to go over. Number 11. Any others? Okay, we'll go over number 11. All right. Number 11, first of all, is a graph that looks like this. Okay. So number 11 says roots x equals 3 2 times, x equals negative 1 one time, x equals negative 7 one time. Okay, and it says it wants us to go through 0, 7. So I put 7 for my y, and I change all of these to 0. Okay, so I get 7 equals 1/9. 0 minus 3 is 3. 3 squared is 9. 1 and 7. Okay? Oops, this should be A, because we don't know what this is yet. Okay? 9 times 1 times 7 is 63. Divide both sides by 63. And 7 goes into 7 one time. 7 goes into 63 9 times. That's how I get A. So we rewrite it as y equals 1/9 x minus 3 squared times x plus 1 times x plus 7. Questions about what I just did? Any others? 6 through 15. Okay. Let's talk about those matrices ones. Ready?
Yes.
16. We should get -2, -3, 4, -5, and 6. I'm going to repeat it. Number 16, we should get -2, -3, 4, -5, and 6. Number 17, we should get -5, 0, 8, and 4. -5, 0, 8, and 4. Number 18, you should get 0.916, 1.75, -3.083, 0.250, 3.166, -3. That's 0.916, 1.75, -3.083, 0.25, 3.166. Yes, Nolan?
I got all fractions of those.
Okay, it's just the decimal equivalent. We can do it and write down what the fractions are for those in just a second, okay? Number 19 is 2, -3, 1, -2, and 5. 2, -3, 1, -2, and 5. Number 20 is 3, -7, -8, 0, and 0. 3, -7, -8, 0, and 0. And so, okay, one that we want to look at is number 18. Matthew, can you lend me your calculator? Okay, so let's put this in our calculator. And I'm not going to put it this way. I'm going to put it where it's a little bit faster, where I'm raising it to those powers. So first I'm going to write out how I would put in number 18. And then I'm going to put it in my calculator. Okay, so number 18 looks like this. So I know it's to the 5th. So I'm going to make my big matrices. And I know my first column is going to be to the 5th, second one to the 4th, then to the 3rd, then squared, then by itself, then 1. Okay? So for 18, I'm going to put -2 to the 5th, to the 4th, cubed, squared, by itself, 1, take it to the -1 power and times it by its constraint matrices. And in this case, I'm going to put 15. Then I'm going to go -1 to the 5th, -1 to the 4th, -1 cubed, -1 squared, -1, 1 to the -2. Then I'm doing 1 to the 5th, 1 to the 4th, 1 cubed, 1 squared, 1, 1, and 0. Then I'm doing 2 to the 5th, 2 to the 4th, 2 to the 3rd, 2 squared, 2, 1, and 37. And then I'm doing 3 to the 5th, 3 to the 4th. Man, this gets old after a while, huh? 3 cubed, 3 squared, 3, and 1, and it's 290. And last one, 4 to the 3rd, 4 to the 5th, excuse me, 4 to the 4th, 4 to the 3rd, 4 squared, 4, 1, and 1,203. Okay, then I'm going to put this in my calculator. It is a 6x6 matrices. Okay, and I'm going to put in parentheses when it's negative. So negative 2 to the 5th. Negative 2 to the 4th. Negative 2 cubed. Negative 2 squared. Negative 2 and 1. Negative 1 to the 5th. Guys, don't forget these have to be in order. You have to have negative 2, negative 1, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can't move them around. You couldn't have like 3 first and then 2 and then 4. It won't work. Negative 1 to the 4th. Negative 1 to the 3rd. Negative 1 squared. Negative 1 and 1. Then we have 1 to the 5th, 1 to the 4th, 1 to the 3rd, 1 squared, 1 and 1. We have 2 to the 5th, 2 to the 4th, 2 cubed, 2 squared, 2, 1. And we have 3 to the 5th, 3 to the 4th, 3 to the 3rd, 3 squared, 3 and 1. And we have 4 to the 5th, 4 to the 4th, 4 cubed, 4 squared, 4 and 1. We take it all to the negative 1 power. And we times it by a 6 by 1 matrices. And we plug in 15, negative 2, 0, 37, 290, and 1,203. And I do get fractions as well. So here are my fractions. Let's see. Okay. So my answer key says that my problems look like this. So I get in here 11 twelfths. Let's see if 11 twelfths is the same. Yeah, that's 0.916. And then I get 7/4 for this one. Negative 37 twelfths for this one. 1/4. 19/6. And I get negative 3. So those are the same things, and I would give you either. Any other questions about the matrices ones before we move on to the last one? Okay. All right. The answers to the last ones are 21 is negative, is plus or minus 8i, plus or minus 8i. Number 22 is negative. I wouldn't leave it like this. I'll just put up mine. Hold on. I would make them like. Let's see if I can find the right paper. I would say number 21 is plus or minus 8i. 22 I would leave like this. Negative 1 minus square root 13 over 6 and negative 1 plus square root 13 over 6. Number 23 is 2. Number 23 is 2. Number 24 is negative 3 plus or minus I square root 6. Negative 3 plus or minus I square root 6. Number 25 is 1/2 and 1. And number 26 is plus or minus 4I. Okay. Do you want me to go over any of those?
2 of them.
Which ones?
You pick.
All right. Let's look at which one?
25.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is label them A, B, and C, right? Because I don't want to try to figure out how to factor that. Doesn't, you could have. That would have been fine. But I don't want to do it. So I have A is negative 2, B is 3, and C is negative 1. Okay. Then I plug it into my equation. Negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times negative 1 all over 2 times negative 2. Yes?
I was using the negative 3 over 2a plus or minus the b squared.
Mm-hmm. You want me to separate it for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we should just have negative 3 over negative 4 plus or minus the square root of, this gives me 1, right? 1 over negative 4.
Right.
So you would still get the same answer.
That's kind of what I left it as. Negative 3.
The only issue is, what's the square root of 1? 1. So you should get negative 3 over negative 4 plus or minus 1 over negative 4. So then you can keep going, right? You can go negative 3 over negative 4. It's just 3 over 4, so I'm changing that. Plus 1 over negative 4, or 3 over 4 minus 1 over negative 4, which will give you 1/2 or 1.
Oh, okay. I just didn't keep going.
Yeah, you just got to keep going. Any others? Yes. 22. Okay. So we have 3 terms here, right? We have one with x squared, one with x, and one with it by itself. So we are going to label them A, B, and C. A is in front of the x squared, B is in front of the x, and C is by itself. And then we're going to plug it into negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. All over 2a. And we get negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 1 all over 2 times 3. So I literally went 1 times 1 is 1, 4 times 3 is 12, a negative times a negative gives me a positive. So I get the square root of 13. So I would say this answer is negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 6. You could separate it and have these two things, which would give you these two answers. But I would keep it as negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 6. Others? 24. Okay. First thing I have to do is add 15 to both sides. Then I label A, B, and C and plug them in. Negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 15 all over 2 times 1. So I get negative 6 plus or minus 36 minus 60, which gives me negative 24 over 2. Now here's where it gets complicated, right? You can't have a negative 24. So we're going to say that that's I. But then I'm like, okay, how do I simplify 24? I simplify it as 6 times 4. What's the square root of 4? 2. So it's negative 6 plus or minus I 2 square root 6 over 2. Now we can divide both of these by 2, so I get negative 3 plus or minus I square root 6.
I got a question.
Yes.
If you put 2I, would you a difference?
No, it probably would be more accurate, actually, because I told you to write it that way. That would be fine. Any others? Okay. So, your goal for tonight is to study. That means you must look at this. You must try the problems, especially ones that you got incorrectly according to my answer key. You should really, 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 really look at them again. Okay? You're going to want to make sure you have the correct answers for these things. And not just go ahead and be like, well, she went over the review, so I'm perfectly fine now. No, that's really just not true. Okay? All right. So I'm going to stop recording. You guys are going to look through. You're going to circle the problems that you got incorrect. You have the correct answers now. You're going to try them again.